Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene, and today we're talking about ...
the person who wants to play ... Well, when somebody comes up to the GM and wants to play something really out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Now, almost every player is going to do this at some point or another. They don't want to play a fighter. They want to play something really off the beaten path. And that's okay. I think that's good, right?
Okay.
You know, it's people are expressing their individuality, their individualism, and want to be different, want to be not the same as everybody else, and want not to be this like normal thing that everybody else is.
An example?
Well, I mean, the other examples. If you look at the D&D books, there's all kinds of alternate classes. There's all kinds of new species that you can be, or race you can be, or I think now they call them backgrounds. I don't know what it is, but like a tabaxi, right? Tabaxi is the rabbit,
I think so.
right? And so, I mean, I never thought about playing a rabbit in AD&D.
It's not an actual rabbit. It's a rabbit.
It's
a large rabbit race of peoples.
Right.
Of rabbits.
Of humanoid people.
Yes.
Well, I think it's kind of funny, but it's weird because, like, in the Gamma world, there's a race of
large rabbits.
Large rabbits. There's two of them, but the one that's really funny or comes to mind is the hoppers. Hoppers or the hops? I forget what's the name, but they were like these bunny characters, bunny people. You couldn't play them, but they were denizens of the Gamma world, and they would if they touched metal, they make it into rubber. So they were really dangerous if you fought them like with weapons and stuff, because they would touch your sword and it become rubber, right? It's this comedic thing, but they were really nasty little creatures, right? No, they weren't little either. So the books allow you to become these weird...
A variety of characters.
A variety of different races. I don't want to say that word, but I don't know what else to call it. Creatures, right? Tabaxi is one. I think there's one. You can play a cat. Is it a cat one?
I'm
pretty sure there's a cat somewhere in there.
I don't know. I know there's cats in space opera.
Yes, the cats and dogs in space operas. So there's a lot of stuff that make people want to play something that allow people to play something really different, because people like those kind of options. They want to be different, and that's okay. I don't mind. Had
Tieflings. People like to play tieflings.
Yeah, I don't know the draw of tieflings. I think I really haven't looked into
because they're cool.
I haven't really looked into tieflings that much, or any of the alternate groups of people that you can play.
Although in the D&D world, playing a tiefling could be troublesome, because most people, when demons come along or demon-like characters come along, they don't want to talk to them.
Right. And
so it's harder to investigate if you're a tiefling.
As far as I know, yeah, because they have a tail and everything, right? They look very devilish,
yes,
in a way. And I always thought that was weird that somebody would want to play that, because I don't know how, what do you call it, common they are?
I think maybe because of what's the character that all the books are written about, the drow elf. Drizzt.
Yeah, but he's not a demon.
I know, but he's a dark elf.
That's true.
That he's misunderstood and all kinds of different things, right?
Yeah, fish out of water.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah, I think when Drizzt first came out, a lot of people wanted to be dark elves, and to the point, or for that matter, the ranger class that he was, they incorporated that stuff into the rules, because what is his name? I forgot his name. The author of the
Salvatore.
Yes, Robert Salvatore, I believe is the first name. R.A. Salvatore. Yeah, he was just writing about his friend's him and his friend's campaign. Yeah. Literally, that's what the adventures were. And I'm not sure if the dual wielding scimitar drow was first, or the rules for being able to do that in 3.5 were first. I think I know his stories go way back. So if he goes before 2000, then he inspired those kinds of that rule of a ranger being able to do wield into rules, and a lot of people loved that idea. And there was a lot of dual wielding drows around post 3.5 when I think that was instigated, and you could be a drow. I don't even know how to say it right. People tell me different every time. Obviously, what is that? Popular culture or book literary culture can impact the RPG world in that sense, because people want to be like that. Kind of like the Conan the Barbarian, right? The people want to be a barbarian after Conan the movie came out. I think that kind of stuff happens. So being different and being not the usual kind of character is enticing to a lot of players.
Wasn't one of the characters in the D&D movie recently she was a part tiefling because she had little horns and a tail.
Oh yeah, I think she was part tiefling.
Yeah.
But they didn't make her look like
no, they didn't. No.
I think that was.
Well, it was a movie,
Yes.
so I wanted her to be cute.
I envisioned the tieflings to be kind of like Darth Maul looking.
Darth Maul
from the Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they were facial tattoos or not, but the black or red red coloring and stuff. Anyway, at the very least, they have a tail and have horns somehow.
Yeah.
And usually they look a little different color tinges of skin color. So again, one of my players wanted to become a tiefling. I go, well, you understand that there's not a lot of tieflings around where you're at. It is not a society of tieflings, and people aren't exposed to tieflings that much. So you might cause people a little bit of alarm. I don't really know if I want to say alarm, but hesitation in dealing with you. And he had a high charisma, and he kept going, I have a high charisma. I go, well, a high charisma for tieflings, but other people may not see you as being charismatic. But charisma is also being able to talk to people and stuff like that. So I kind of understood where he was coming from, but again, I was like, well, I think if you come small town late at night, you may not get a good reaction. And so, but he was dead set on being a tiefling. So I'm like, okay, well, if you're willing to deal with that kind of, reaction of you and your character, the way he looks, then I don't care. Fine. And players, his dad in the Shadowrun game, he was kind of an odd character. I didn't even know he was female until at one point somebody said something. I go, "You have a female character?" And I was taken back.
That was the GM's. I'm not going to say problem. The GM not doing his homework and reading the character sheet to see what the person was.
Yeah, I agree. I really should. I mean, they've thrown me for loops left and right lately. Not lately, within the past 15 years. So I should, when they say, "Oh, I'm going to make a character," give me the character. And I do ask for the character sheets. But sometimes they get them.
You ask for them, but you don't actually read them.
Yeah, that's the second part, is the reading part. So that is a crucial point of paying attention to what characters players are making. But for the most part, though, I've been running games since about 1980, space opera, dark conspiracy, D&D, and I've run all kinds of games since then. Because I like the new shiniest thing lately, and I buy it and I try to run it at least once. And I've had characters, players come to the game and say, "Oh, I want to play this, I want to play that." I'm like, that's kind of odd. And to me, it's odd, but it's not like ridiculous. But luckily, there's this thing called the internets. Have you heard of that, honey? And it's very intriguing because it allows anybody to share information about stuff that they experience. And some of these people out there have experienced some pretty weird stuff. Like you came across some person who wanted to play, was it a 5-year-old?
Yes.
And a tiefling?
Yes.
A 5-year-old, and I'm guessing it's a D&D game because it's tiefling's his character.
And then since he was 5 years old, he couldn't read.
He wanted to be
I believe he wanted to be a magic user.
Well, easy enough if you're going to be a magic user. And so what was funny is that when Jolene told me that, I just went straight to GM mode, right? Like what is going to go with this character, right? Like what obstacles is he going to have, or what is it? What circumstances is his character going to have to face in a certain sense, as far as his attributes and stuff like that? So I forget what it is. In most games, there is an aging chart, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get a certain age, you start losing your strength. Like if you hit 50 and you start losing your constitution, and so because you're aging, right? The idea that as you get older, you get weaker and not as strong, but you get wiser. Maybe your intelligence goes up. But usually, and there's a chart for adolescents, like young people, but usually they don't go as young as 5 years old. I don't think I've ever seen a chart that goes that far down. And I remember there's a chart for like children, goblins, or orcs or something like that. Why you need those stats? Who cares? But anyway, well, there was one adventure. I think it was Keep on the Borderlands, where you go into a room that is a nursery of hill giants. So that's a problematic scene these days, because what is a hobo supposed to do with the children full of hill giants?
Walk out of the room.
The younglings, right? What are you gonna do with the younglings?
Walk out of the room.
So if you've seen Star Wars, you get my reference. But anyway, so other than that, I haven't seen anything that refers to like what kind of stats you would have. So in my brain, I immediately start saying, well, you'd probably have a -2 to your strength, a -2 to your constitution, wisdom and intelligence are way down, and then Jolene reminded me that it was a 5-year-old. So a 5-year-old can't read.
I have a lot of problems with someone wanting to play a 5-year-old.
So it's like, okay, so if you can't read, then and wants to be a magic, he has to be a sorcerer, or she has to be a sorcerer. They have to be a sorcerer. So because it's innate ability.
Yes.
Right. But then I start thinking, I go, well, a 5-year-old? I still remember when my son was 5 years old. I go, what kind of cognitive ability does he have at 5 years old?
And how are the other players supposed to react to a 5-year-old? You're not going to take him on an adventure with you.
You put him in a backpack.
You would. No, he's not a goblin that you found or something.
But then I tried to put my head around it as a GM, right? But then it hit me, like I go 5-year-old, and I'm trying to think about when I was a 5-year-old, and my son's now 19, and I remember when he was a 5-year-old, right? There's no way that kid could go adventuring at 5 years old. There's just no way.
No kid goes adventuring at 5 years old.
I mean, they go
where people tell them to.
Maybe adventuring in the backyard.
Yeah.
If you have a nice backyard. They go adventuring and all these.
But only for a little while.
Yeah, because then they get tired and they want to eat and go to sleep and take a nap. I was like, okay. And then immediately, I'm still trying to make this work, right, as a GM, because that's my job. So I start thinking about Ender's Game, because Ender's Game, I think the characters in the book are between the ages of 6 and 12. And when I first read it, by the way, people, I hate Ender's Game. I know that's going to turn a lot of people off. It was a brilliant science fiction game. And every time I went to the bookstore, I go, good science fiction. Oh, they would always point to Ender's Game. I absolutely hated it, right? I thought it was ridiculous. I knew the premise right away I ain't gonna spoil it for you, but it was a stupid premise.
The book's been out for a while, babe.
Yeah, it was since the 70s, I think. And the one thing I couldn't jump over the hoop was that these little kids were like battling each other, breaking each other's arms, with kung fu or martial arts or some sort of fighting technique. And I'm thinking, they're 6 and 7 and 8 years old, right? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. And then I thought, well, maybe in our society we coddle or we don't give a lot of independence to our children, right? Like the Spartans, they were like really.
They still didn't send their 5-year-olds off to battle.
I forget, they did send their kids off
but not 5-year-olds
to go kill a wolf or a cougar.
Not at 5 years old.
Yeah, I wasn't 5 years old. I think it was like 10 or 12 or 14. Even then, I couldn't get my head over the age in Ender's Game.
Oh, yeah.
And then I read up on it, right, about Ender's Game and about the characters or the actors that they got, right. So they were interviewing actors for these parts. And they found that from the ages of 6, they were playing actually ages from 7 to 12. The child actors would have 2 things. They would be able to play angry and upset real easy, or they could play like concerned and thoughtful. But they found that
they couldn't do both of them.
They couldn't do both
within
with that age.
Yeah.
So they had to find a 13-year-old to play. I think in the movie he was 11 years old. Ender, and I forget the actor's name, but if they can't even find somebody to act like a 7-year-old or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If they can't even find
So how is the player going to act like a 5-year-old?
or how is the actual little kid going to be able to react and act in an adventure? It's not possible. They're
Well, it's possible, but it's a 5-year-old, so it's not going to be.
They would cease to function, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're playing,
They're not going to have a sword. It's going to be bigger than them. They're not going to shoot a bow or anything like that. I mean, they're a 5-year-old, so they're not going to have hardly any hit points either.
That was another thing. They would be like kobolds. They'd be like 0 or half a hit point, but as my son would say, it's basically a hit point character.
As your son would say, it doesn't matter if it's half a hit point or 1 hit point.
It's treated the same, and he's right. So, if this is D&D because he's a tiefling, what is that character going to do?
I don't know, but my adventuring party wouldn't take a 5-year-old with them. They would find its mother and give it back to them. I'm just saying, or leave it at the end with someone watching it.
Yeah, they might find an orphan out there, right?
Yes, but if you find an orphan on the road, you're not going to add them to your party as a fighter.
As an adventurer.
You're going to take them to wherever they should go, to an orphanage or something.
And then how well can that character communicate? And then
how is the player really going to act like a 5-year-old?
Yes, that is a huge problem.
So I don't know what the motivation for that is, but...
Well, that's what you would do, right? I think that's what... I still can't get my head around it, right? How can a 5-year-old do anything in an adventuring party as in a game which is combat heavy like D&D? D&D is a combat game, no matter what you think about it. There's a lot of rules about combat.
Even if it's a mystery game, it turns into a combat game.
It usually turns into a combat game because it's combat oriented. There's a lot of rules about combat, and that means it's a combat game. And then I didn't even think about it till much later, is that you have a 5-year-old that's being put in danger or could be put in danger in a lot of situations. To
which the other players, not even the characters, are going to go, what?
Yeah, they may not feel comfortable, especially if they have children. And there's all kinds of things that scream problematic in allowing this to happen. So regardless of all those problems, right?
Do you think this person just told this guy, I want to play this because he just wanted to see what he would do?
See if you let him play? I have no idea. But let's say he really wants to play this 5-year-old. First of all, I think I would have to ask the person, okay,
what kind of game do you want?
Well,
what are you looking for?
Yeah, I think even more personal than that, right? More introspective would be like, what kind of game do you want to explore? Because playing a 5-year-old is a different kind of game than a normal game, right? To me, that's what I would say. What do you want to do with this character? What stories do you want to tell about this 5-year-old child adventuring? And I don't have the answer to that because that person, I have no idea what that answer would be. Or what is your goal?
What is your motivation?
What is your motivation of wanting to play a small child in a very grown up world? Like even today, right? Yeah. Even today, they talk about people who are really smart, right? The genius people, kids, and they go to college and stuff. And sometimes, even though they're smart and have knowledge, they lack the experience and they lack maturity to deal with certain situations in college, right? Mm-hmm. Quite a few of them. And that's just college. That's something that's very, orderly, right? You go to class, your professor gives you homework. The chaotic world of medieval fantasy world is
not that.
Is not that, right? So I would ask that person, why do you want to play?
Because the first question would be, why is a 5-year-old in a bar?
Isn't there a movie where why is there a baby in the bar?
I don't know.
I think it is. I think it was Sweet Home Alabama. That's what it was. Anyway, so I would ask that question to that player. Why do you want to play this? And then if they give you a good answer, which I don't even know what a good answer would be. I guess I forget what justice it was, but they'll say, when I hear it, I'll know it, right? If you give me one. I don't know. I can't answer that question because I can't come up with a good answer of why you would want to play a 5-year-old. But the idea that you could actually play a 5-year-old to me seems almost non-existent. I mean, there's no chance that you could play that young of a character and be successful. I don't know. I mean,
And you also need to take into consideration that the rest of the party might not want to adventure with a 5-year-old.
Yes. And then they wouldn't want to put a 5-year-old in danger. I mean, I know a lot of people,
and would you have to stop on the road for them to take their nap every day? I mean, and then you have to go to bed early because, like, at 7 because they're 5.
Yeah, because how much stamina do they have? They have absolutely none.
And when they get cranky,
yes,
I mean,
they're not going to shut up, even though there's they're trying to sneak through Stimpy. I don't care.
They're 5.
Yes, strange. It boggles my mind still. And maybe the guy was just trying to be funny. Maybe he was just trying to be funny. But it does raise some interesting points about strange
people playing different characters,
right?
And why?
Extremely different characters. I think the weirder they are, it's fine. But I think at some point you're gonna say, look at a player and go, no, I can't allow you to play a 5-year-old. It doesn't make sense to me. Whatever. Even unless they come up with something good, which I can't come up with on my own.
Well, you also told me about a guy that wanted to play an old man.
So this is actually, I think it was from another podcast. So they were playing a World of Darkness game, which is like vampires and stuff like that. And I think they were playing. They might have been playing vampires or vampire hunters. I think that's what it was. Right? They were like.
And
one of the characters, one of the players, wanted to play this old man who owned a bar. So the guy, oh, that's cool. That could be a meeting place for the people to gather. Blah blah blah. But it turned out after the game started, the old man never wanted to leave. The player never wanted to leave the bar. It was, I got things to do. Well, we got to go after this vampire. Well, I got customers. I got to stay at the bar. And so at first it was okay. And then it's like, you actually never want to leave the bar. You never want to. And he goes, well, I'm 90 something or 80 something years old. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why did you make that character? So I think it was intriguing for the GM when he first heard of this. He goes, "Oh, you want to play an old guy? So you're not going to be like rough and tumble. You're going to be a thinking person, right? You're going to strategize."
So if he never wants to leave the bar, then the party's always going to be split unless they're visiting the bar, right? He's just not going to do anything during the adventure.
Yeah, unless he's there for the planning phases,
and that's it.
So what do you do in that situation? Well, obviously, there was not a meeting of the minds between the GM and the player.
I think that's the whole thing about this episode is that if people want to play weird things, whatever it is, and by weird I just mean different, right. As in I want to be a tiefling. Okay, tieflings are, if you're in D&D, they may not come across. When you walk into town, the people might run,
or even worse, a village. Like if I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. Well, maybe they do realize it, that people didn't leave their village very often, right? They didn't experience very different types of people coming in, and strangers were dangerous.
So that's one thing, right? So you're going to have obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. Or say you're playing a character that you want it to be odd, right? I've played in games where the guy talked with a lisp because he thought it would add character to the character,
right.
Add pizzazz, or someone says, "I limp, so I can't run," right? That kind of thing. And I've been in that game too, going, okay, I'm not sure what the motivation is, but we have to figure out what we're doing with you, right?
Points. You get points for having a limp.
You get points for having a limp,
depending on the game. Unless it's D&D, but like a game where you get points like Karma or like Shadowrun or GURPS.
Yeah.
You take a disability or not.
Well, Shadowrun, Kathy's current character can't drive because she took some ability where that was good, but as one of the side effects of the karma that she used for that, she had to take a disadvantage, which was she can't drive.
Well, a lot of my players are alcoholics or
addicted to stim.
It doesn't come into play very often as it should,
but sometimes it does.
It does.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of that mechanic, that disadvantage. You want more points than you're legally or standard.
You want more than the 25 karma you get,
whatever.
Yeah,
or 100 points in GURPS, whatever. So you go, well, if I
take a limp,
lose an alarm, I can get another 10 to 15 points. So.
But then you have to figure out how you're going to play that character. For one, are you really going to play it like that? And two, how the other players and player characters are going to assist or not assist you in these different things you want to do, like being a tiefling, right?
Yeah.
But being an old man that wants to stay in his bar all the time is fine. But that just says to me, like our friend Chris, sometimes he wants to come over when we're playing role-playing games and stuff. But he's like, I'm an old man now. I don't want to argue. I don't want to play in it. I just want to sit here and watch you guys.
Yeah, even when we play board games, which
Yeah.
are easy entry into playing.
Sometimes he'll play, but he likes to just be around people, right? So I can see that. So you want to play an old man character that just sits in the bar. Everybody else goes out adventuring, and you can just sit on the couch and watch, right?
Yes.
But playing a 5-year-old, I'm going to go, if I'm playing in that party, and I know some of my friends, especially Kathy, is going to go, we're not taking a 5-year-old on the road. Do you know how hard that would be? And if we found a 5-year-old on the road, we'd take them to the nearest village and give them to the priest or somebody to take care of, because you don't want to be responsible for that kid getting hurt during your adventure.
Right. And I think
so that would be the adventure, getting the 5-year-old somewhere, right? Versus you're not going to give him a knife or a bow or anything.
I think people have been influenced by certain shows and movies and books. For example, I don't remember okay, I'm going to go Game of Thrones here.
Gosh.
Game of Thrones. Great character, Arya Stark, right? At one point, she is being taught to fight with a sword. Mm-hmm. But it's more like a real thin sword. I don't know the proper name.
Anyway.
So she's being taught by this Grand Master, right? And he's telling her it has nothing to do with size, it has to do with skill, and it has to do with quickness and stuff. So she becomes really good at using a sword of a small nature, not this big old freaking broadsword, but like a fencing sword almost. I don't know if a saber would be the title. Anyway, but she even gives her a sword. I forget what it's called, a special sword, Valerian steel even. So this Grandmaster's teaching her for quite a while, right? And then her whole world gets upturned, and she no longer has this Grandmaster. Anyway, so I forget what age she is. I think she's supposed to be 8 or 9, right? And I don't know. She goes through trials and tribulations. The whole family does, of the Starks. And I think at one point she becomes like 12 or 13. I don't know. But she's like really good at fighting. So I think those kind of stories where you look like Ender's Game, Game of Thrones, I just forgot her name. Whatever her name was, Stark. Arya Stark or something like that. Anyway, those kind of influence people's brains, and they go, "Oh, I want to play a little kid, or I want to play somebody really young." And then at the same time, they do have older people who are playing in Game of Thrones, other characters who are really old, who are like stalwarts, right? They're still in the fight because of not because their body is that much fantastic, but only because of their mind, right? They're like, I'm not going to give up, even though my body's falling apart. So those kind of things might happen, but they're very rare. And I think some people might take it too far with the 5-year-old, and some people might take it too far with somebody who's old but doesn't want to leave a bar, right? Because the person has to leave a bar no matter what, to go live, go get groceries.
So I think the takeaway is that if you want to play a different kind of character,
right,
you need to get your GM to agree with it, and you need to get the other people. That's where session 0 would come in.
Yeah.
The other people in your group to agree to it. And I don't believe that. I don't know. Maybe you all want to play 5-year-olds, and then it can be a very interesting game. But it wouldn't be much of an adventure unless it could be an adventure in the nursery or something.
Well, I do run a game called Tales from the Loop, where the characters are 10 to 15. They do some pretty amazing stuff as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, but it's written that way, and they're not 5, right? They're 10.
They're not 5,
10-year-olds can usually get on their bike, well, in my day, and go wherever they want.
Wherever you needed to go.
Now, probably not, but
yeah,
not where I live anyway.
You probably could. I've seen kids riding all over the place, but you're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that I'm shocked. You are actually saying something positive about Session 0. Just give me the googly eyes.
I'm not giving him googly eyes. I'm giving him the duh.
Well, you don't seem to like the Session 0 because it's like a session that you could play instead of just this number crunching, getting what do you call it?
We've talked about it before. You could do Session 0 over email or something like that.
Yes, that's true. And I have done that
Yes.
in the past, yes. And it went off really well.
Or if you're going to do a session 0 where they're just making characters, fine, whatever. But you're missing out on you actually got the people in the room together. You should be playing the game. That's just
a wasted opportunity
yes.
to play. Yes. Oh, maybe half and half to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, then it's just half an adventure on that day.
So I think people are gonna, if you GM long enough, people are gonna come up to you asking to play some outrageous characters.
So when you tell your GM you want to play this outrageous character and he goes, no, not in my game, and he doesn't even give you a chance to explain yourself, you'll know why.
As a GM, I hope that doesn't happen, because if people are really invested in playing a character, ask them why they want to play. What is so intriguing about this character? And maybe they're not gonna get to play the exact character they want.
Maybe they don't want. Maybe your GM won't let you play a 5-year-old, but it'll let you play a 16-year-old
or 12-year-old.
Yeah,
I know.
16.
I mean, it depends on the game.
I mean, if it's D&D, a first level character is between 18 and 25, right?
I think that they might be as young as 16 or 17.
So you could push it there, but I mean,
I'm
you're a first level character, so you don't have very many hit points anyway. Why would you want to give up more hit points to play a younger person? I don't know.
I'm big for a 5-year-old.
Especially a sorcerer, you really don't have any hit points.
I'm big for a 5-year-old.
I'm going to stand behind the fighter here, and you're going, and one of the people in your party is obviously going to be a barbarian, right?
Well, obviously.
I'm just saying, if you want to play a 5-year-old, someone's going to go, I'm going to be a barbarian. I want to be like Conan.
So I think that it's very necessary to avoid a lot of conflict. You just talk to your GM about your character. I think as a GM, you should always have a session 0, or at the very always look over the characters that you're allowing to play.
Make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because if I showed up to a game and they go, oh, my character's 5, I'd be going, what? I'd give it a few minutes and I'm going, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important, is the communication between the players and the GM. And the easiest way to do that is to have a session 0, or like you said, do it online. It takes a little bit more work as a GM to do that stuff, because you have to keep track of all the emails. You got to send emails. You got to badger the people to give you emails back or respond to emails, as they say. And so
not that he's bitter or anything.
I've done it both. I don't think, have we really had a session 0? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think we've ever had an actual session 0, but I have had the emails going back and forth where I'm like, okay.
We did. We had a session 0 when we wanted to play the Lindworm game.
Oh.
Well, 1, because we had to figure out how to play it, and 2, we had to figure out what the rules were. And
what was the name of that game? Camp something, Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was luckily Bay and Morgan were there to
explain the rules. Yeah. Yes. Not a top 10 in my book.
Anyway, so that we have had a session 0, just
yes, but not very often. Usually I do it over email, or I just say make a character and send me the.
Because you're usually playing with the same people who know your table rules, like no evil characters and stuff like that.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, so
they can recite them blindfolded.
So if someone throws you for a loop, ask them what their motivation is, and then figure out if you can deal with it. Figure out if you and the other players can actually play with this anomaly that they want to do.
Yeah, correct.
So there you go. Good luck. I don't envy you. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.